Hi everybody, this is Scott and I'm back. This marks our final PD cycle for the year and our last webinar together. In alignment with the scope and sequence established by PSJA's Department of Instructional Coaching, our May PD is on Writing to Learn. Please sign your school's sign-in sheet to record your attendance at this webinar. Like always, let's get started by turning to a partner to talk about this question. What Writing to Learn techniques do you already use in your classroom? Each of you has 30 seconds to talk, and I'll tell you when it's time to switch. Let's say the person whose birthday comes next in the year goes first. So I'll wait just a few seconds while you figure out which one of you that is. Are you ready? First speaker, begin. Okay, switch. And stop. Our goals for this webinar are really to get you to use more and more Writing to Learn in your classroom and use it with fidelity. Writing to Learn is the most misunderstood of all the strategies of the Common Instructional Framework. Much of the writing that we demand of students in schools is writing to demonstrate. All assignments, projects, classworks, and assessments that are designed to measure what students have learned are writing to demonstrate. But the sole purpose of writing to learn is to foster students' thinking during the learning. Peter Elbow is a professor at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and he's the director of the writing program there. His entire career is devoted to teaching good writing, which is why it's particularly powerful to see that he's also a strong proponent of writing to learn. He says the goal of writing to learn isn't so much good writing as it is coming to learn, to understand, to remember, and to figure out what you don't know yet. Even though low stakes Writing to Learn is not always good writing, it's particularly effective at promoting learning and involvement in course material, and it's much easier on teachers, especially those who aren't writing teachers. You'll find the student effectiveness rubric for Writing to Learn in this month's newsletter. In demonstrating classrooms, students are writing all the time for the purpose of learning and to prepare for graded assignments later. The question I'm asked most frequently when teaching teachers about Writing to Learn is, why can't I grade it? The answer is completely dependent on the purpose of your assignment. See, if you want your students to demonstrate their learning, then you want a high-stakes, graded assessment. But if you want to stimulate thought, generate ideas and connections, and keep students engaged and thinking during class, then what you want is a low-stakes, ungraded task. This is Writing to Learn. Here's the point. The grade changes the student's focus from thinking to performing. You and I engage in low-stakes writing all the time. Here's my shopping list for HEB. And there's my task list for today. I'm really glad no one is grading these, because I need to focus on what I'm going to buy and what I'm going to do, not on what a grader wants from me. And consider this example. Dr. Seuss's last book was Hooray for Diff'n'Doofer Day. This is part of the manuscript for that book. You can see he's playing around with possible names for the school and with rhymes. So even famous authors need a chance to play with ideas before putting them in final print. Don't get me wrong. There's a place in schools for both low stakes and high stakes writing. But typically, it's the low stakes writing that gets shortchanged. And that's too bad because low stakes writing to learn is the choice that actually helps students make connections. One of my favorite strategies is to have students write for 2 minutes before they turn and talk. The writing isn't graded, but the writing helps students think about what they're going to say. Peter Elbow notes that writing to learn is much easier on teachers than graded writing assignments, and especially if you're not a teacher of English or writing. So it's okay to make a note in the grade book about whether the students are participating in writing to learn activities. A simple check mark might be enough. Or a plus or a minus could be used to indicate greater effort or even no effort at all. The point, though, is that no score, no comments are made about spelling, grammar, or any other of the writing conventions, because writing to learn is not the teaching of writing. It's the teaching of thinking. Over this year, you've heard me say that the person doing the talking is the person doing the learning. We said that means also that the person doing the answering and the person doing the asking is the person doing the learning. This month, we say that the person doing the writing is the person doing the learning. Since this is our last webinar together, it's time for me to tie all of these up as one simple idea. Take a moment and notice that in every case, the learner has to be communicating, and it's expressive communication. Talking, answering, asking, and writing. In every case, the learner is expressing, and that's where learning happens. We'll talk about ways to incorporate writing to learn in your lessons during our face-to-face PD. And speaking of our face-to-face PD, you'll find the schedule of sessions in this month's newsletter. Please come prepared to think of ways to include writing to learn in the lessons you'll be teaching after our session together. Thanks for watching. As always, please complete this survey by entering the URL in the web browser of your phone, tablet, or laptop before you leave this room, and I'll see you soon for our live PD at your school.